Today is June 19th. We have not one, but two former NFL superstars in DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook as NFL free agents, ready to destroy the fantasy value of incumbent wide receivers and running backs across the league. Today, we'll break it all down and more. This is ADP Chasing. Let's go.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your site.
Jamar Alpha Play Chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally piss boys. You're right.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of ADP Chasing. We're joined today by my former co-host, Connor O'Driscoll.
Oh,
Connor,
have I been kicked off Sack Chase?
Yeah.
Is this how I find out?
You guys aren't
Jesus,
Well,
yeah,
sorry to break it to you like this.
tough scene for you, Connor. That's
former, as in the show, is taking a temporary hiatus, but
Did he ask you about this, Pat?
yeah. No, I recommended he do it.
It's coming from way above. It's coming from above Pat even. Yeah, it wasn't his choice, but.
All right, what a start.
Amazing start. We're here. We got a bunch of old guys who are still inexplicably being drafted high. It feels at this point with the rumors that DeAndre Hopkins is not being allowed to leave the greater Massachusetts area without a contract, he just feels like spicy, expensive Juju Smith-Schuster to me at wide receiver 19 ADP.
It's interesting because I've seen some people be in on him. I think Denny Carter was saying he was in on him.
Jacob did like a whole post.
So Jacob was in on him.
Explaining why being a Patriot.
What's the evidence that he's like much worse than Prime Nuke?
He got cut. My evidence would be that he got cut.
That is a relevant data point.
We do this thing, and we're doing it with DeAndre Swift too, where when a team decides your services are no longer needed, we come up with reasons why another team would want your services. But the bottom line is
Davis, where's your Elijah Moore exposure at?
Hey, a team wanted him, and I haven't been taking him. I honestly have not. Okay. It's gone way down. He actually has gotten correspondingly more expensive as people realize they don't want to click on Alan Lazard or Jameson Williams or Juju Smith-Schuster.
That's what's happened to me. I started taking him more because of that.
That's what it was, a structural thing why I was taking him to begin with. But where I'm at on both Hopkins and Dalvin is that if those are the guys that if you send me my year-end summary of why I didn't win the stupid $3.5 million and it was because I lost because the people who were on Hopkins and Cook were right, I accept that as a reason why I didn't win.
I thought they were on the record of saying, "Oh, hey, we went into this season expecting him to play for us, but then apparently he doesn't want to." And
but shouldn't there be a team willing to give up a third-round pick for his services, right? And it's even more worrying.
I don't think
not
the
if they're going to cut him.
though.
Maybe that's fair.
It's maybe like the Derek Carr situation, right? Like obviously
Sure.
the Raiders should have been able to get a draft pick for Derek Carr, but once they make it clear that they're going to cut him, then a team doesn't have the incentive to do it. So it could be along those lines.
Is this the only
why
show
would I
where I
trade
can
for
say I
that
don't
contract
think
when I
Game
can-
Theory supports that, and it just makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, you can give, I think, to be fair to Hopkins, if you look at his stats from last year, he still was flashing top 12 wide receiver status, 26% targets per route run. That was 8th amongst wide receivers with over 200 routes, 2.0 yards per route run. That's a top 20 number, 13 half PPR points per game. Again, top 10 number there. So what he was doing last year still, I think, justifies him at that ADP. I think it is a fair question, though, of, whatever situation he lands in now, potentially on the Patriots in a low volume offense, potentially being the wide receiver 2 on a team like the Browns or maybe even the Chiefs or Bills. I think I'm more in on him than you are, Davis. I don't know. I've been clicking him when he falls a couple picks, which he has been recently.
The Browns, he would be I would be in on him there because I think he probably just the routes he runs, he's going to be like a really good volume role with Watson. And he would obviously kill Elijah Moore dead. I mean, Elijah Moore would be like undraftable if Hopkins was on the team.
Yeah, I also think I would think he'd be the favorite to be the wide receiver 1. I mean, I think him reuniting with Deshaun Watson. I mean, Amari Cooper. Probably. We weren't even interested in Amari Cooper last year. You know, he had a surprisingly good year, but I think he'd probably work ahead of Cooper. Be a 1A, 1B thing probably, but
yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the other concerning thing is it's June 19th. The season starts in 80 days. He's had all these free agent visits. We've heard nothing about the Bills or the Chiefs, the teams that should most be willing to pay.
We actually kind of have heard about the Bills, which is that they're unlikely because of cap reasons. So he's not going to the Bills, I don't think.
For fantasy, what do we want better? Because Hopkins is probably dealing with this thing right now. Like this is the conversation him and his management are having. Do we sign a 1-year prove-it deal with a good team? Do we care about winning a championship, or do we want to get all of our money? What's more important? Being in a winning situation or getting the money? Because the teams that can give him the money are not winning situations, right? Like the fact that he was willing to take a fucking free agent meeting with the Tennessee Titans where, I mean, best case, what do they win? Like 8-9 games, maybe? Like that is a bad football team. And him taking meetings with them seems to me that it would be more about the money. And those are going to be situations where the team level stuff is not going to favor him.
I think the Patriots one's a pretty good fit in terms of if they're willing to pay him a little bit more. I don't know exactly what's on the table, but that's not going to be like a winning team, obviously, in the sense of like, him going to the Chiefs would be. But with Hopkins there and an offensive coordinator, they do strike me as the type of team that could like be way more frisky on offense than we would have thought, in January.
And if it's kind of correlated, I think, as well, in that like if Hopkins is good, if Hopkins is like close to where he was at his peak, like he dominated even in terrible offensive situations already. Like it wasn't one of his best Texans years with like 3 quarterbacks. Like I can't even remember. Like
I know he should have just stayed and played with Clayton Tune then. If it's about the money. Just stay in Arizona and get 150 Clayton Tune targets.
Well, they got him.
I do think there is like some risk with the age. Maybe not necessarily performance decline, but we're just talking about the show that we're all generally the same age, and not that we're comparing with athletes, but I've definitely felt more pain than I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
I played pickleball Saturday and Sunday, and I'm spent. That was it. That's
not that it actually means anything, but you do get players do tend to get injured, more likely to be injured the older they get. So that is a factor.
He's 31. I would be more concerned if he was showing a decline. In fact, in 2021, he did kind of decline a little bit. Yards per hour and dropped to 1.76 from 2.25 the year before. He was kind of being used a little bit more downfield and wasn't drawing targets at all that high of a rate. So it was like a little concerning that maybe he was.
But he came back though. That's the interesting thing is that he came back and was good. Yeah. And then there's that other element of the PED suspension and like how much did that factor into whatever he had going on? Because PEDs are about recovery. It's about getting your body. Speaking of the aging stuff, it's about going from 70% recovery to 85% recovery, like literally like getting oxygen back to your muscles faster because your body's ability to do that year over year decreases. Yes, it'll be easier. Great point. He can
That's
cheat.
True.
Yeah.
So to the premise of the show with ADP chasing, is there a landing spot that tanks? Of the popular landing spots, the ones that are thrown out,
Titans.
Titans is the one that would tank it for you guys.
But where would he land?
Where would his ADP be? He'd go where Godwin and Pittman go.
I think that's right. But that's still not that far. I mean, that's early 5th.
But also think about what it would do to Burks. Burks then would become a guy we could take all the time because we could just bet against the old guy and take Burks because Burks would get nuked. Burks would drop back to where like Jameson Williams goes, I think.
I think he'd be where Bateman is.
Yeah, I was gonna say where Bateman is.
Bateman's
Still,
son.
a round and a half probably. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's the one. Like of all the other ones that have been thrown out so far, even the Texans, right? I think the Texans is kind of similar to the Patriots, where we don't expect the team to be good, but he could just absolutely dominate targets there. Like I don't think he falls that much if he lands there. The Browns, I think he rises. The Bills and Chiefs, I think he rises, even though those are probably less likely at this point. So I don't know. I guess
Chiefs have no money. The Chiefs have no money to give anyone. They are so capped out.
I'm assuming Patriots at this point, and he falls into the mid to late fourth. I've been taking him.
Yeah.
You know, you also do correlate him then with the Bills. So if there's that 1% chance he does sign with the Bills, you have him like easily stacked. It's all part of the same game stack. So
this leads a lot of credence to our theory, by the way, that like betting on the Patriots, having an offensive coordinator is one of the only edges right now in best ball is like legit. Like one, because obviously having Hopkins instead of Juju or Kendrick Bourne is good for you. But then two, just that they're wanting to add talented players to the offense.
Yeah.
It's like is lending credence to the theory that they'd like to score some points.
It'd be a good signal overall, for sure.
I mean, quarterback is so hard to acquire ceiling at. Like after Anthony Richardson goes, that getting Mac Jones as your second quarterback on some of these teams and having him be the quarterback 17 is like actually going to add
massive.
points to your. It's going to add points to your.
It
roster.
normally doesn't matter, just because like when the other quarterbacks are like reasonably priced, like getting QB 17 from the 18 doesn't matter, but now with the prices, like it matters so much more.
Yeah, with the three best quarterbacks being gone by pick 30, being able to get like actual quarterback points in the last round is going to be like fairly massive, I think.
Yeah, and he has job security, you know, maybe not like true job security. Like if he absolutely sucks, they'll bench him. But if Hopkins goes there, you know, it's at all close to what we would expect the offense to look like with an offense coordinator plus Hopkins. He's pretty safe.
Yeah. The reports for Mac versus Zappy too are pretty favorable for what those are worth at this point in the offseason. The beat reporters are saying Mac is outperforming Zappy pretty easily, and it doesn't seem like a quarterback competition or anything along those lines. Like it's a pretty clear lead for Mac. So anyways, I'll add the rest. Well, I guess Hopkins isn't a riser. He was just topical conversation for today. I think another guy, looking at the risers now from the past week, a guy who I think is an interesting comparison to DeAndre Hopkins for a lot of reasons is Keenan Allen, who is up for the second week in a row. You know, obviously not the same stylistic player as Hopkins, but similar age and similar to Hopkins, really was quite good on a per game basis last year when he played. I won't go through all the numbers, but similar to Hopkins, you look at, you know, yards per route run, targets per route run, receiving grade, fantasy points per game. Keenan Allen is still on that sort of top 12 bubble as a wide receiver. So Connor, we've talked about Keenan Allen a lot, I think, on the show this offseason. Curious if you're concerned with his age or if you think he's fairly valued at the end of the third round now.
I think that's about right. Like especially in best ball tournaments, I think age actually does matter quite a bit because you need them to be doing the same thing in week 17. But it like you said, he has been performing, and then the other thing about him is that other than Eckler, the other receiving options either have huge question marks or it's the rookie, and so that does give him like a good few outs where if other players aren't performing, then he has to step up more. That's probably not groundbreaking.
It's just the thing with Keenan is that you just pick him and you're like, yeah, it's fine. Like I just got Keenan Allen. Like he makes sense for team building because he goes so close to his teammates and it falls in an ordered way that it's easy to select his teammates. And a lot of the guys that the room is asking you to take over him are guys that you can have legitimate, like, it's just really not going to be surprising to me in any way if Christian Watson like finishes outside the top 36 scores a wide receiver.
Yeah, Christian Watson strikes me as more of a 4-5 turn pick that's on the 3-4 turn, but I'm still taking him some because he does have such a high ceiling, but it's an uncomfortable price.
But look at all these guys around him have such massive questions. Like Hopkins, who we just talked about, Judy. Like Judy might not be as good as we thought he was, and the offense could stink. London, we know is good, but
I take a lot of London.
Yeah, I take London too, but I don't feel great about taking Ritter. So a lot of the times I'm like, I'll take. So I'm setting up Keenan. So I'm like, I'll take Herbert, Mike Williams. I mean, I just greatly prefer Keenan to his teammate Mike Williams. The only guy in this range that I have no questions about is McLaurin. Like that for like 20 picks in a row. It's like, yeah, McLaurin, he's going to get me
McLaurin's
1,000.
tough. I'll sometimes take. Well, we'll talk about Brandon Ayuk here. At this point in the fourth round, I'm taking guys based on what I think I'm going to be able to do in the following rounds. So like sometimes I'll take Drake London because I'm like, maybe I can get a falling Fields and then I'll backdoor stack him. Sometimes I take DJ Moore because I'm pretty confident Fields will come back around and I'll be able to get him in the fifth. I will take McLaurin sometimes because I don't think I have much of a chance at those guys, but I might have a good chance at Brandon Ayuk and get that little mini correlation. I'll take Mike Williams because I'm like, I could use a quarterback here. I'll get Herbert when he comes back. So it's really like, I'm kind of thinking through the team building stuff. If I get a value on Christian Watson or Nuke, I'll grab them. But Keenan, I think the most interesting thing about Keenan here is that I think this is the final recovery of his ADP from the cut rumors that started, back in February or whatever. Like, had that not happened, I think he might have been going here the whole time, which is, it's sort of, once I saw this, I was like, I should have been higher on him throughout. Like, I was taking a fair amount of Keenan, I think, this whole draft season, but it is one of those things where it seems silly that, the rumor that he might be cut was holding his ADP back still, but I think it probably was to a degree because you knew, like, because he fell on the 3-4 turn, you could feel like he'll be there when I come back around. Why would I take him in the third? I can get Keenan in the fourth. And there's that feeling that persists until it finally breaks. And now once you have to take Keenan in the third, like, yeah, I like Keenan more than Amari Cooper, Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of tiebreakers in favor of Keenan over Amari.
Yeah, but Amari's been ahead of him like the whole time until recently.
And if he just doesn't, I'm starting to trend this way that I actually think Herbert, like the Chargers could lead the NFL in points scored. They were so obviously held back by their play calling and their play design that it just feels as if Kellen Moore was like unlocking Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz. You know what I mean? Like if let's say Quentin Johnston is good, right? Let's say he comes in, understands the playbook, is not having trouble with some of these things that maybe the film watchers think he might have trouble with. And they find some sort of reasonable complementary back to Austin Eckler that is not Ezekiel Elliott. And that guy's getting it done on the ground and is like a non-zero as a pass catcher. So Eckler's just like fresh and getting like, it could set up as the Cowboys, but with like really good players at all those positions instead of Noah Brown and Michael Gallup, who like is struggling to walk.
Yeah, I take a lot of Herbert because you get that price that's just much better than certainly the quarterback prices were earlier.
Yeah.
Although at this point, maybe the gap between like Herbert should probably be in the sixth, given that Fields is falling to the mid to late fifth now. Burrow falls to the fifth sometimes.
Yeah. And I think we mentioned Quentin Johnson, but if Johnson is good, back to Keenan's price at the 3-4 turn, I think he hurts Mike Williams much more than he hurts
for sure
Allen. Which I actually, Mike Williams, we talked about the wide receivers in that range. He's the one that I'm kind of most scared of in the McLaurin, London, Judy, Hopkins, Watson range. I agree all those guys have red flags, but Williams for me is the toughest,
right?
Because of that. I don't know. He's never he did
have. You had that stretch of 6 games, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're projecting.
He's had a couple stretches. I was at a Chiefs Chargers game where he scored 3 touchdowns, and it was like sometimes there's nothing you can do about that dude. The issue is that he every time he catches a pass, it looks like he's gonna die. Like he catches a pass, and you just like the stretcher's coming out from him. I mean, he's been injured every year for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
What I would say, Mike Williams is not like the most popular guy in our circles generally. He doesn't get open, which is a problem, and he's a contested catch specialist who falls down extremely hard every time he catches the ball. So not my favorite archetype either, but I do think he's a fine pick where he's going. I think what Quentin Johnson could add to the offense is some more explosiveness, but not necessarily like a high target earning type of profile. He's kind of a raw like athlete. He's not as athletic as we were hoping, but he's kind of this yards after catch type of guy. He's not a very good deep threat. I don't think he competes with Mike Williams in the same exact way. Like Mike Williams doesn't separate at all, but is a really good contested catch player. He's more of like a T. Higgins type. I think Quentin Johnson is probably more of like a Brandon Ayuk, where I shouldn't say he's not a good deep threat. I think he could, if he's open over the middle, that could work really well. But he's not like a guy you chuck the ball up to and he wins over his defender. That's not who he is. He was actually pretty terrible at that.
Yeah.
So in some ways, Williams could, if the offense is like more explosive and more difficult to deal with, the big guy who can't separate, getting more one-on-one coverage, it could be good.
I mean, Williams' ceiling case to being like a huge advance rate guy or the guy you need in week 17, it's all touchdown related. That's been his his biggest thing. Let's
you
talk
can't
about
double him and he scores some touchdowns.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this Akers rise, because this to me has nothing to do with Cam Akers or these quotes around him. It just has to do with him being a more comfortable click. One, more comfortable click than the guys going directly around him. And two, every day that passes and they don't sign Zeke or Fournette or Kareem Hunt or whatever, and it's him, Kyron Williams, and the 5th round rookie or whatever, it's just more likely he's the guy. But more comfortable click than Swift, way more comfortable than Galvin.
I like Swift better.
I'm so out on Swift. I know Swift is going to be the guy, is the reason why I don't win the $3.5 million, I think, but I'd rather have Akers.
I was reviewing some numbers on Swift, and just like his receiving stuff he's good. Very good.
He's good. I have no question, no concern about Cam Akers or about DeAndre Swift being a good player. The questions I have are the same things that caused him to not play when he was in Detroit, which is that he never does what his running back coach asks him to do. And he, in fact, goes against his instructions all the time, where they're like, we need you to do this. And he's like, no, I'm going to go freestyle jazz on the perimeter here instead. Like I did this thread the other day and I just Googled news, DeAndre Swift, and every Google news story from the last year is like Deuce Staley or Dan Campbell being like, we sat him down and we talked to him and it was a good conversation, but doesn't really seem to be applying it in games.
If I have that archetype, I would prefer him to be on the league's best offensive line in an extremely explosive offense with an offensive philosophy that prizes explosive plays, right? So I don't have any pushback on DeAndre Swift's between the tackles running. In fact, it might be underrated just how bad it is. Like his success rate in NFL Next Gen over the last couple of years has been atrocious.
His yards before contact up the middle is like really good though.
You would expect that though, because he doesn't want to get contacted. He will do anything to avoid the contact. The dude will do like a 360 spin juke move just so he doesn't get squared up. So you would think his yards before contact would be good.
You're right. That's true. Well, isn't that like, you're not supposed to get contact?
Well, if your coaches are asking you to, if your coaches are
right, I can understand why that would piss off like Dan Campbell or whatever.
This is the thing, is that we need him at this ADP, which is basically where Miles Sanders was going last year. Maybe he was a little bit cheaper than this, relatively speaking, at running back. But the idea, because the Eagles are not going to throw that many passes to the running backs. There were 61 total throws to the running backs last year, split up amongst 3 guys. 61 targets, I don't even think is attainable for Swift. I agree. Really shocked.
I agree.
So it's got to be touchdowns. He's got to score a lot of touchdowns. And if you're not getting carries from the 3-yard line, which Miles Sanders got like a bajillion of, it's going to be hard to get those touchdowns. And they might, in fact, their plan probably is to give him those touchdowns, right? Or those carries right now, I would guess. But 4 weeks into the season, and he gets stonewalled twice and bounces one to the outside and fumbles on one, how long do they stick to that?
I think his chances of a strong goal line role are extremely low. I think Gainwell might play ahead of him on the goal line. Like,
I take Gainwell. I prefer Gainwell.
Yeah,
and even Boston Scott, I think, might have the edge on him on the goal line.
Yeah, he
is
really
the
doesn't
guy
have...
who could score the unlikely like long distance touchdown.
That's what it is to me.
He's Kenneth Walker. Yeah,
it's a Kenneth Walker play for me, and I think he could get enough receiving volume to where that makes him a little interesting, and then you're just betting that he rips off the long touchdown. And at a 7th round ADP or even 8th round, sometimes I don't need him to I don't need the legendary upside. I don't need him to rack up a ton of touchdowns.
And it's a real what do you win when you win style thing, because the guys going around him, Akers, Pacheco, White, Connor, these guys are very unlikely to be the guys you need, right? I don't see the 2021 or 2022 Josh Jacobs season. Like, Pacheco is the Chiefs starting running back, and he's going to score 167.5 PPR points.
I've been taking him a little bit because he's falling, but I don't think the market has fully clocked the fact that he won't be at training camp for the first half.
He's hurt. Yeah, he's hurt.
Yeah, and there's this UDFA Deneric Prince who they're all.
Oh my God! Enough of the. It's all I see. People with their Deneric Prince.
Well, the Pacheco drumbeat ended up being pretty predictive, so I don't know.
I think he might just the injuries never take the expense of Chiefs running back.
It's really. I mean, it's that's an extremely good philosophy. The issue with that is that McKinnon is not free the way he has been in years past. You're paying for McKinnon this year, another year older, more closer and closer to not be to the point where the Chiefs get to December and they're like, all right, Jarek, it's time. And Jarek's getting out of bed and cracking his knees and putting icy hot on his back. It's closer and closer to him not being able to do that.
Yeah, speaking of recovery,
could it just be a spot where it's not good?
Say that, Connor.
Could their Chiefs backfield just be a spot where they're all priced up that the winner doesn't come from?
Clyde's rookie year, they were all bad. Every guy who played was bad. There was not really one guy you wanted to have that year.
The following year, Darryl was a smash.
Yeah, but 2020 Chiefs running backs, let's see here. So Clyde was bad, Le'Veon was bad, Darwin Thompson was bad, Darryl had one good game, but they were really none of them you wanted in fantasy.
You kind of need a guy to come out of nowhere in that backfield, almost with how random they use different players.
Well,
I don't think it works to say, you know what, this is the Chiefs back. I know they're getting X, Y, Z volume, and I'm just going to pay for that. I don't think that that works.
Well, there's a running back with Super Bowl experience who said he doesn't care about the money he gets on his next contract. All he wants to do is win another Super Bowl. Who is Leonard Fournette is going to sign with the Chiefs. I'm preparing for
Leonard Fournette's such a good pick right now. I take him a lot.
Yeah,
I sometimes take Gainwell, and then I immediately regret not adding another Fournette.
No. Gainwell is good. This actually,
I know, but I want Fournette.
This may be a dumb question.
Or the Bengals.
Is there a market for Lenny?
Yes.
So this is also, I think, an underreported thing is that the Bengals beat writers are saying that Joe Mixon and the team still need to come to terms with a pay cut for him. They're probably going to put a contract extension is what I was reading in front of him, and that extension would, I think, probably lower his cap hit, be like a trade for maybe another year or two in exchange for less money this year. Otherwise, they're going to cut him. That's the way it sounds. And the market's completely back in on Mixon now, but that is a spot, right? They could cut him and sign Lenny. And honestly, is that worse for them? I mean, yeah, it's probably slightly worse for them, but if they can get a good deal on Lenny, who just wants to win a Super Bowl, then it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, you are 100% right. I think the Lenny conversation dovetails nicely with Jerome Ford, who is just going to keep rising every single week that the Browns don't sign another running back, right? Because like the coaches are all really complimentary of him. I mean, this was a round 18 pick when we started doing this for BBM, and now like sometimes you got to take him in like the 14th on a 0 running back team to make sure you get him.
Yeah.
Are
Things.
we that sure? I mean, I'm starting to get skeptical. I get the reports are good. Like I think where he is fairly priced, but I'm starting to get skeptical of a guy who had 8 carries for 12 yards last year as this like surefire. Like I get right now he's the most likely Cleveland number 2, but if Chubb goes down, like I don't know. I feel like it turns into a committee and
with who?
I think it's going to be a committee even with Chubb there. But
who's the other guy? They don't even have an RB3 on the roster right now.
John,
but I think they're going to sign. I think they're going to sign someone. I don't think it's going to be Fournette or Hunt or someone, but Daryl.
They are saying they'll sign someone, but yeah, maybe a Daryl Henderson type or something. I think Ford is a pretty clear handcuff. 13, 14, if he settles there, I think that's okay, especially in a period where we like don't know for sure who the handcuff is and like a number of other backfields.
Yeah. That is the explanatory variable for why the rise is happening is because we have less clarity. Like the market doesn't know who to take between Chase Brown and Travion Williams. The market was like exuberant about Chase Brown for a period, and they don't need to be anymore. This Paris Campbell rise. What are we doing? Paris Campbell's not going to be who you need in Week 17. Spoiler.
Well, that's fair. It does sound like he's gonna get like a fair amount of playing time out of the gate. To me, this is a Wan'Dale Robinson thing where I just like I'm taking a slot receiver off an ACL tear, and he might start the season on PUP. And they signed like 18 slot receivers, which is not great anyway. And then one of them is starting to get buzz. Like Wan'Dale's still like more expensive than Hodgins and Slayton. I mean, Slayton's still free. So to me, it's Hodgins, Slayton. Those are the guys I want to be drafting. Hyatt feels very. He's with the third team right now. He's a 3rd round pick. I don't know. I think we're drafting.
I just don't care. I'll just take Wan'Dale for the vibes, dude.
Well, it is good vibes.
Yeah, like I just pick. Yeah, like the Paris Campbell vibes his entire career. Like he's amongst the worst vibes of any player in the NFL. Like,
I agree with that.
It's just the vibes are so bad. I don't care how much guaranteed money he got. If they're counting on this dude to be their slot wide receiver, he's gonna have an ankle tweak, and we're gonna be treated to Jameson Crowder by like week 3.
I just don't
get
why.
The only thing about Paris is that like he did get like an 80% ride share last year, and score
he was fine.
150 PPR points. I'm not sure what the hot PPR was, but he did score points, and if you got that from the 16, 17 rounds, like that's useful. Like if he did just end up being like a plays most of the snaps guy, that would be useful. I'm not
Zay
myself to draft him, but
I could see Paris Campbell putting together like a Zay Jonesy kind of season where he's just out there a lot.
Yeah,
but I feel like Zay Jones can like run real routes and like go downfield in a way that Paris Campbell just kind of survived off like gimmicky like screens and yak stuff. I don't know. I think it's that's like a little bit of slander to Zay Jones. Like Paris Campbell last year, out of 100 wide receivers, he was 94th in yards per route run, 86th in targets per route run, 86th in PFF receiving grade, 6 half PPR points per game. I mean, I don't know. I guess I can't hate on the Giants picks too much because it's so uncertain. And if I was to project it now, he's probably the starting slot wide receiver to start the year. But Sterling Shepard's actually like looking healthy in camp apparently.
That's the thing. If Sterling Shepard stayed healthy for the entire season, I'd be like, we should have just taken him every time. Like Sterling Shepard could be like the wide receiver. He could be like the wide receiver 30 in 0.5 PPR if he stays healthy all year.
And if he's what he was.
Trying to
that's why the boomers take him in the 20th round in the FFPC live drafts every year.
Yeah.
It's a good pick.
Did he tear his Achilles too, or is it just an ACL?
He's had a bunch of shit.
I thought it was
back-to-back years of Achilles and ACL, back-to-back years.
That's so tough. And then to not see him like since, I don't know. I don't draft him, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was. But he's coming out of the slot most likely. I just don't.
Exactly.
I don't want to spend any capital on a giant slot receiver when there's
Yes.
so many guys who could be there.
Exactly. It's like, what do you win when you win? It's like, great, you got Daniel Jones slot wide receiver. I don't get it. Darren Waller's also there. He's going to play in the slot a bunch. I think.
People
Like, it's done.
hypothetically that's not the right word. Hypothesizing that Waller is going to be like a boundary wide receiver. That like the role they have carved out for him is actually just to use him as like a flanker, basically.
Interesting. I mean, he has played some
That would be pretty awesome
throughout his career. I bet he rotates. I bet he plays slot. I bet he plays outside some and also plays inline tight end.
I bet that's right. Yeah.
That was his position in college. He was the Georgia Tech flanker when he was a collegiate wide receiver. So it's not like the craziest thing, but I mean,
I think that sounds better if like they add that to his existing like slot and inline and role.
Yeah.
I've been liking Waller, especially on teams
Waller.
where stacks like aren't going my way, and I'm like, oh, this is feeling like a pretty uncorrelated team. Grabbing Waller and stacking him up with Daniel Jones, and then tack on like Hodgins or Slayton later. I mean, I think he's just going to be the focal point of like if all goes to plan. I think they're planning on him being the focal point of their passing attack. Whether he still can do that, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's their plan.
I definitely agree with that.
I like
Waller. He played 20% of his snaps out wide last season. That was his low with the Raiders. In 2018, his first year with the Raiders, he played 6 snaps that year. So 2019 was his first real year with the Raiders. He had a 25% rate of snaps out wide. I think he's gonna move around the formation for sure.
And that's out wide, as in like on the boundary, as opposed to like slot position, right?
Yeah, slot. He was at 31% in 2019, in line for 45%. Last year he was in the slot primarily, 62%. He was only in line for 17% of his snaps last year. They were just having him run deep out of the slot. It didn't work.
The other interesting thing is that they also like Bellinger. Like they don't think Bellinger is like a zero. Like he's gonna kind of be around in kind of like a Noah Gray style way, just like blocking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But that directly takes snaps away from these like 900 slot wide receivers who are getting drafted. Point being, they're all pretty bad picks. I think like just very unlikely. They're the two things are they're unlikely to be that just like veteran. Like he'll get you 11 points. They'll get you 11 points sometimes, and extremely unlikely to give you like 25 point spike weeks, like almost impossible.
Here's the thing. It's like, we're spending so much time, not, this isn't like these guys are super pricey, but relatively pricey picks in Campbell, Wan'Dale Robinson, like trying to figure out the Giants slot wide receiver when like the Bills slot wide receiver is just completely free. Like I think
Shakir and Hardy are better picks.
If you're trying to figure out think the slot wide receiver on a team, like why are we doing this on the New York Giants? Like it makes
So you guys think the Giants slots should just be undrafted, basically?
Pretty much.
No, they're like I think they're all 18th round picks. Like they're the same thing as taking Greg Dortch to me.
Yeah, I don't mind the outside guys as much, but Slayton is free. And I do mind taking Hyatt. I mean, like Hyatt's ADP to me is never corrected since he was talked about as a potential late first round pick. Like his price is pretty similar to when we thought that was on the table. And now he's a 3rd round pick. He's playing with the 3rd team offense. Slayton was good last year. This coaching staff has, a history dating back to the Bills of bringing the rookies along slowly. I just have like a hard time thinking that Hyatt's going to add like a ton. I'll take him sometimes correlate with Daniel Jones. I don't want to be completely out, but I just think Slayton being free is nice. And then I do take Hodgins as well, because I think, as long as they don't do something with Waller where he's like legit playing the X, but you're saying, Davis, he might be more like the flanker with the Z. So if Hodgins has the X role kind of locked down, there's no one else that really challenges him.
The thing with Hodgins is that if things get weird for them as a team in training camp and someone's performing above expectation or is like becomes a core 4 special teamer when they haven't before or just something like that, Hodgins makes no money. So he's the easiest to cut. I think he's like
cuttable.
I think
Hodgins
he's like
has
90.
to win the starting job or he's going to get cut.
Yes.
There's no value for him as a backup.
Yes, like if he has a mediocre training camp, or like if he lips off to the coaching staff, or just like he makes like they have like 11 wide receivers on their roster, and he makes the least money. So it's just very.
He's
easy
essentially
to
on a
cut him.
rookie deal, though, so that's not necessarily a
Sure.
reflection of his value.
Well,
but it does make him easy
It's
to
not
cut.
it's not a reflection of his market value, right? Because they didn't have to pay him anymore to lock him.
Yeah, they just claim.
That sounds more
Right.
like they'll keep him then.
In
Well,
some
the
ways,
thing
you
is,
could say it
If
makes
they're getting
him
him below market,
He's a
Yeah.
Well, the
very
thing is-
cheap, cost-controlled starter, but he has to be a starter, right? They're like, we trust him. He's going to play X for us. That's great. Then all of a sudden, his contract's an advantage. If he loses the starting role to someone else, he's an easy cut.
Because the problem is, if you look at, and this isn't always end all be all, but you look at the guaranteed money, they gave, I think, 7 guaranteed to Slayton, so he's a lock to make the team. Paris Campbell, I think they actually gave 3 million guaranteed to, so that's like nearly a lock to make the team. I'd say they could cut him with that, but it'd be a little
Plus,
bizarre.
he's generating buzz. It'd be kind of odd if they cut him.
Yeah, and they also, they spent a 2nd-round pick on Wandale. They spent a 3rd-round pick on Hyatt. Those guys aren't getting cut. So, like, once you start doing the math, Hodgins, I think, is at
nobody
is
else is cuttable. He's the last man.
That's
it's
the
almost
thing,
by
is that
process of
he's competing
elimination.
with like Shepard and Crowder, I guess. Like it's
So
like a
he's a
four-way
huge
competition
favorite.
for a couple. Yeah, he's a favorite. He's a favorite.
Yeah,
for
he's a
sure.
huge favorite over those guys because although it's like I think we tend to do this. Crane's made this point to me before. Is we tend to overreact when these guys who come out of nowhere overperform for a couple games. Like Richie James, his former teammate, is actually a great example of this. Richie James, career special team, like he was special teams for San Francisco for 2 years, comes in on a Monday night against Green Bay. 13 targets, 11 receptions, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and we literally never heard from him again. He came in, he played really well. We never heard from him again. The 49ers unceremoniously cut him. He was a reserve player. He was playing behind David Sills, like for the Giants. Like it didn't matter. He was good for the Giants last year, and they moved on from him. Like no sweat. They didn't think twice about it.
It's the Travis Fulgham corollary, basically.
Oh
like
my God, yes.
These guys can just disappear. And I agree that, like, we're not saying Hodgins is unlikely to make the team or that Shepard is better than him. I don't think any of us are saying that. We're just saying that, like, I would put his odds of making the team at like 80%. And there's a lot of guys you can take that are closer to 100%. So it's like, do you want to take that risk? I think you can justify it. Like I've taken some Hodgins, but I think you have to acknowledge he does have like a legit cut risk.
I do think you have to acknowledge that. I take a fair amount of them, because I think his odds of starting are also about 80%. So it's like, it's like the scenarios where he doesn't start, he's a 0, but there's guys in that range.
And he could get picked up. I think another team would claim him.
He could land
maybe
back on the Bills.
I was going to say, maybe he goes back to Buffalo, where they do kind of need someone. Let's do Ayuk. Because I'm buying this, dude. Like Ayuk,
I'm kind of into
Ayuk with
same.
Purdy for 17 games, dude. Like, come on. And I'm in on Debo too. They both seem like guys who can get there with 22% target shares, and they definitely can be the guys you need in Week 17. But I think both things are true.
Someone tweeted this out this week. I'm blanking on who, but it was when Ayuk, CMC, Debo,
Dwayne McFarland.
Yeah, Dwayne tweeted this out. When everyone was healthy and on the field, it was basically Ayuk, Debo, and CMC all with like 21% target shares, and then Kittle at like 12%. Now that's a small sample. Like I don't think that's how I would like project it in the median outcome, but I think Ayuk has a chance to be, the top target getter on this offense if Purdy plays a full year. So
Harmon's
it's
perception stuff always likes Ayuk, always grades him out really well, which makes sense.
Yeah. I wasn't quite as into Ayuk back when the quarterback situation felt like very uncertain. Now, you get into that early 5th round, and it's like Godwin, Pittman. Ayuk is just such an easy click there for me over those guys. Like just the weekly upside, this offense is rolling down the stretch. Like think about, how psyched we were to draft these guys in the playoff best ball tournament.
Oh my God. Every draft I took one of these guys.
Yeah. If they're that 49ers, then like you're going to be so psyched that you have 5th round Ayuk. Like that seems like a pretty easy.
And 4 of their games every year that used to be rock fights, right, against the Rams and the Cardinals. Those used to be, and the Seahawks, honestly, for that matter, those NFC West games used to be like rock fights. And now every team in that division either stinks or plays like a more wide open, fun version of football. Like those 7 games or those 8 games that they're going to play are all better games. And the week 17 game could be fun too. I mean, it could be it could also be terrible if the
Howell
Commanders
is
go down
good
that road. Yes.
It could really push the 49ers.
Yeah.
I used
Plus,
also. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
They probably won't be running a ton, right? I mean, you'd hope the enemy would be, inclined to be passing more than they did previously anyway, but especially against the 49ers. Like, I don't know. You don't want to just slam Brian Robinson to the line.
Yeah.
I want to talk on the Patriots stuff. So with James Robinson getting cut, both Ramondre and Pierre Strong are showing up here as risers, which I think is kind of funny because Robinson shouldn't affect those guys' ADPs. I don't think he was likely to make the team the entire time. But anyways, I think Pierre Strong is probably the more interesting one to talk through here. Does anyone feel good about Pierre Strong in the 18th? I've been taking him, but I do feel that it's still pretty uncertain between him, Kevin Harris, Ty Montgomery.
Let me tell you something I know with 100% certainty, which is that Bill Belichick is going to try and make this Ty Montgomery thing happen. Like it's just now, is he going to get hurt immediately? Of course, but Ty Montgomery is going to be when it's the first third down of the year for the New England Patriots. Ty Montgomery is going to be motioning from the slot into the backfield with 100% certainty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Brandon Bolden role.
He's playing in camp right now. So a couple things on Ty Montgomery. He did have that role in week 1 last year, which a lot of people are citing before he got hurt in the first half. I think he was playing the third down role in that offense. It was a gross 3-man committee with Harris, Ramondre, and Tymon all getting snaps. But right now in camp, he's playing clearly behind Pierre Strong. Like Strong's mixing up the first team. It's still super early, so who knows how much to read into that. What I just can't figure out, like, what is the compliment to Ramondre? Like, are they looking for a pass catching back to be the compliment to Ramondre? Are they looking for a short? Like, I can kind of see it going either way. You know what I mean? It's not clear to me where Ramondre
wasn't the quote work. That he's the starter, but we want to spell him on clear passing situations. I thought there was a quote that came out like that.
That was a quote about Ramondre?
Yes.
I remember seeing something like that. I think it could be kind of like Mixon-y, where Ramondre still catches a lot of passes and is used in the passing game, but like does get subbed out on third down some for, I guess, Ty Montgomery, maybe Pierre Strong. But yeah, I don't know.
You would need him to pass a lot on first and second down, I think, for that to be similar to Mixon.
I mean, this is the ideal thing that would happen for Ramondre would be for him to take the Sony Michel. I don't who all
Damian
these guys
Harris.
they've had Damian Harris, Sony Michel. Who was the guy before Michel? Stephen Ridley. Stephen Ridley was the name I was searching for. But then also subsume the third role, right? Because the Patriots used to have 3 roles. They'd have the grinder, they'd have the passing down back, then they'd have like their red zone, Swiss Army knife, weird,
Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burke. It would be Rex Burkhead. It'd be a lot of different. And so what you'd really want is you'd want him to have the Damian Harris, Stephen Ridley role, but then also have that. I would actually call it the Kevin Falk role as opposed to like the Shane Vereen, James White role, where you're getting him 40 to 50 receptions and all the goal line work. And that's totally justified at his cost. And there's enough meat on the bone for a Pierre Strong or Kevin Harris to get, round 18 value, no problem.
Yeah.
Or Ty Montgomery, right? I mean,
he's 30 years old.
I've
and
not been taking the backups.
Montgomery's 30 years old and hasn't played a full season. He's played 1 full season in his last 4 years. So I
think 20 touches in the last 3 or 4 years. I'm kind of sick of the Ty Montgomery stuff, but I don't know. I do agree it's not gonna be 100%, a CMC role for Ramondre Stevenson, but I think sometimes we fail to put these things in context, where I still would project Ramondre to have one of the largest backfield shares of any running back this year, like top 10. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get somebody else involved. So I'm not reading in too much of these offseason storylines. Like they had the same running back room last year. I mean, Ty Montgomery was injured, but when it was Ramondre, Pierre Strong, and Kevin Harris all healthy last year, he had a workhorse role. So why is that going to change this year? I guess you could use the Ty Montgomery argument, but I'm pretty skeptical.
And those backups were rookies last year, and we've seen them. They completely redshirted Damian Harris. Having those guys enter their second year isn't ideal for him. I actually think having James Robinson be cut in some ways is bad because Robinson was not going to be good. These other guys could be good. It's at least plausible that one of them's really good. So I don't think these guys are huge threats to Ramondre. I think Ramondre is a totally fine pick. Like late third round Ramondre, which has been available pretty much all offseason, has been awesome.
The guy, I think, looking at this, I'm back to the 2008 New England Patriots trying to find a comp to Ramondre, and there really isn't one because they've always had it segmented out. But it's never they've never done what it looks like they're doing with Ramondre, which is transitioning a guy from the Vereen, Falk, Woodhead role into the Ridley, Harris, Blunt role. But that's what they're doing right now. And so I think I can't remember if Sam or Pat just said this, but like applying the context of like Ramondre is really good at both things. He's good at the pass catching and he's good in the short yardage. Bill Belichick is like a pragmatic guy. He's not gonna. I don't think they're gonna be like, well, we got to get Pierre Strong 8 touches in this game just because he is that role in the backfield or whatever.
Someone correct me wrong if I'm wrong about Strong's profile, but I think it could be sort of like a CMC Mitchell type split where Pierre Strong comes in as sort of the change of pace, like 5 to 10 carries per game guy. He profiles as more sort of like a rusher than a receiver, and Ramondre still keeps like the goal line work and the receptions, and they bring in Strong to do some of like the trap back type stuff.
I mean, he's 5'11", 205 pounds, very fast, and he's I mean, I don't think he profiles as like a passing game specialist, but I think
he does not.
Yeah,
he profiles as it is explosion back. He's a change of pace, Kevin Coleman-y type of guy, basically. I would say. I mean, he's a breakaway runner.
You could really see this
breakaway percentage in college.
You could really see this being a Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman thing where they're really just sort of interchangeable, but one guy really gets the lion's share.
Yeah.
And Sam, you remember we were doing stat chasing, and like if a guy had 70% of the backfield share, he was like almost in the top 5. Yeah. Like the bar to be the quote unquote workhorse is like so much lower now.
It really is, yeah. I think people forget that too when they're like, oh, this guy's going to have a role. It's like, I mean, literally, unless you're talking about Najee Harris in 2021, CMC in 2020, like, yes, you can list like 4 or 5 guys that literally had that insane workhorse role the past couple of years, but it kind of doesn't exist. So I think holding Ramondre to this higher bar than, in San Francisco this year, CMC is going to mix in for a 30%.
It would make me nervous, right? Early second round.
Yeah.
But not in the third.
Yeah. That's what I've come to that conclusion on a number of these backs is that I think if they were all second round picks, which is kind of the feeling of the market is like, man, we're getting such amazing values on these guys in the third round. But I actually think they'd be fairly weak second round picks, a number of them. And Ramondre, I think, falls in that range.
So is Josh Jacobs undervalued because he's going to get like every goddamn touch?
Even Josh Jacobs, I don't think I was looking at these guys through the legendary upside screener, and like if you look at things that have predicted these massive seasons in the past, like Josh Jacobs is not a very good bet. Even last year, I mean, he had about 18 points per game. It's kind of a Fournette type of thing where like last year we're drafting Fournette on the 2-3 turn. He's coming off this awesome season, but even then he had like 18 points per game or so in PPR.
Okay, I got
2021, and it's like
to throw at you then.
Can he have the true ceiling outcome?
Do you need to update the screener to include fewer points per game because running backs are scoring fewer points as like a pie of the points that are available?
I think there's 2 things, right? One is what do you need out of the third round compared to what you need out of the 1-2 turn? And I think that's pretty different. If you get a guy who scores, 18 PPR points in the middle of the third round, that's pretty fucking awesome. I'm not saying, but I would say I don't think I need to update the screener in the sense of if you're taking a running back at the 1-2 turn, he really should have the ability to tilt the fantasy landscape and be that guy who you absolutely needed to have. Otherwise, you're taking on a ton of risk. You're also zigging against a market that is drafting wide receivers higher than ever. And if you move away from that to get a guy who scores you like 16 points per game, that's going to really, really hurt this year. So I don't think, and also I would say last year through 17 games, Austin Eckler hit the legendary threshold. So you are still, I believe Jonathan Taylor did as well through 17 games in 2021. So they exist. They're hard to find, but these types of seasons do still exist.
That's fair. Let's move on now to the fallers. Some guys we already talked about. We see Jalen Hyatt on here. ETN, Barkley, Devontae Adams are all down.
Why would ETN be falling? He's a great pick.
He's falling a lot. It's a puppy
Bigsby
thing.
stuff, or maybe the puppy. I don't know. Yeah,
I think it's in the
it's
puppy.
only 2 picks as well.
The running back.
He's been falling pretty consistently. I mean, he was like 30. He was going at 30 overall, and then all that Bigsby stuff came out, and then I mean, it's been a 10-pick slide over a month.
I don't think about Tank Bigsby at all, dude. I just don't. He's like ETN is going to do what he did last year, but if he just gets like 0.8 targets more per game, like they start tossing him some like I don't know. He just also seems to me like he's really good. I want to be like ETN versus Gibbs is like not even a contest to me. Like ETN is going to get 100 more touches than Jahmyr Gibbs.
I'd rather have ETN than Gibbs as well. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a little bit like it's not completely comparable, but it's a little bit like the Charbonnet to Ken Walker stuff where people, I think, if you look at ETN's receiving efficiency stuff last year, it wasn't that good. And people are saying, oh, Bigsby's going to come in and take the third down work.
That's not
he body catches, bro. He body catches and he's got weird foot placement. I've seen this. This is a big thing on film Twitter. He plants his feet weird. So people are worried he's going to get hurt.
To give the film people some credit,
I don't think about film Twitter at all.
I do think people, when ETN came out as a prospect, all the spreadsheet people were saying that he's this unbelievable receiving prospect, one of the best we've had in a while. And the film people were saying his routes aren't that good. His hands aren't that good. I think they've kind of been proven correct in the past.
No,
years.
they've 100% been proven correct, but I don't think it matters because running back targets are so often a valve or they are designed.
Yeah.
And you can get like last year, ETN had 0 games. He had 2 games with more than 4 targets. And he had no games with more than 43 receiving yards, but they can change that so easily. Like they can just draw up like 2 extra dumb plays to him a game, or he gets a couple extra, or if he's just on the field for more third downs.
I think the main thing with ETN is like his TD upside could just be huge this year, unless you think they're going to use Bigsby at the goal line, which I'm kind of skeptical of. Like he had 5 touchdowns last year on the Jaguars team. Like that's pretty bad luck for how good that offense was. And, you add Ridley to the mix this year. If the Jags offense is like a top 5 offense, which I think is in its range of outcomes, he could just have a huge touchdown year. And at pick 40, I don't know if he catches 30 balls at pick 40, I guess I don't really care that much. Like you don't necessarily need that. It would be great if he could catch 50, 60 balls, but I don't think you need that when he's going at pick 40.
It's tough though, because, Jonathan Taylor's falling all the way to the end of the second round now in a lot of cases, towards the end of the second, past the midpoint. You've got Chubb there. You've got Pollard there. You've got Henry there. If you want to go that route, you can take a wide receiver or, quarterback, whatever, and then coming back around. You've got all those guys, Ramondre, Brees. And then you come back into the late 4th and ETN sitting there. So it's like, what do you, it actually, because taking all of them is not really on the table right now. I've done the 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds, and it's not impossible to dig out of, but it is tough. So I think that's what's really driving this fall. I think if the market as a whole shifts away from wide receiver a little bit, we'll see ETN bounce bounce back up to the 3-4 turn pretty easily.
You make a good point, Pat, because I was like, oh, I think I'm in on ETN at pick 40, and I just checked my exposure to him through 50 drafts, and I have literally 0 shares. So I think it's the same. It's the same dynamic you're talking about, where the pockets don't literally line up. But I don't know if he goes to the end of the 4th. I think, right now it's just that I want Drake London over him. I want even Terry McLaurin over him. But if he gets past those guys, I think I would start to have a lot more of him. So we'll see if the slide continues.
It sounds like we think he's officially priced.
I've got 12%.
I think I should have more of him. I don't really know why I have 0%.
I'm in 130 puppy slows, so I don't know how much I have, but I know I have.
But he does sound like a touchdown bet. Where
Yes.
like you think the Jags offense is good, they make a lot of red zone trips, and he gets a good share of those touchdowns.
Yeah, and his success rate last year was actually quite good. I think he might be kind of an underrated rusher. He's seen as kind of this breakaway threat, which he is. He had 263 rush yards over expected last year, which was second only to Nick Chubb, ahead of Tony Pollard. So that is something he does really well. But he's also consistent. He's a really talented rusher. He finished 6th in success rate last year, just ahead of Nick Chubb.
Makes sense.
He seems like one of the most understood or misunderstood running backs in the NFL, where I think people in our heads, we think of him as this like receiving back explosive guy when he's really been a better rusher. He's an explosive rusher, but he really profiles more as a better rusher than receiver.
Imagine if he figures out the body catching though, like the wheels.
Yeah.
Imagine if he learned how to catch the ball. Crazy.
Yeah, he kind of has been painted as like maybe like a Kamara, but he's more of like a Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I think that's a great.
Let's talk about
his range.
Let's talk about Dalvin Cook. Great segue. He shows up in this chart. He's now 80th overall. I'm actually kind of surprised he hasn't fallen farther. I guess the Miami dreams are still living on in people's heads now. But yeah, so I'll say one thing on Cook. I think, people are talking about how he's washed, and I get that from a lot of the rushing statistics that you look at, his age. That totally makes sense. One interesting thing that Eric Eager, I believe, brought up is that he's not washed in that his speed has left him. Like, he still is showing up as, one of the fastest ball carriers on NFL Next Gen Stats. I think he was the 6th fastest of any ball carrier last year. So he's not I think typically when I think of guys as washed, I think of like Zeke. Like, he's got no explosion left. He just looks done. With Dalvin Cook, really the problem is he's not breaking tackles anymore, but his speed still seems to be there. And I think you could make the argument that had to do with his shoulder injury. Like, he's literally playing with a partially dislocated shoulder the past couple of years, and that could have something to do with it. So I don't want to totally rule him out if he lands in a good offense and his price stays around pick 80. But, it seems like the outs to him landing in a good spot are pretty thin, that I don't quite get. If he was at pick 100 or something, I think I'd be drafting him. At pick 80, I'm pretty out, and I'll wait and see on the landing spot.
My big concern is there doesn't seem to be a market for him. Like, there's clearly a market for Nuke. There doesn't seem to be, like, the market for Dalvin Cook is, what if one of their other running backs get injured, and maybe they'll think about it at lower money than what he wants.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct.
I like looking at the success rate stat from NFL Next Gen a lot, and one of the reasons is that I think teams might care about this, and he was horrendous last year in success rate. He was terrible. Zeke was terrible. These are like the worst guys in the league, and the teams just move on from them. And so I think maybe he can get up to speed if under the right conditions, but if he's not consistently doing what he's supposed to do, he's not like a young, fresh set of legs that they're going to bring in for explosion plays. I don't think. He also was terrible in rush yards over expected. So in terms of explosiveness, he was quite poor. He finished just ahead of James Robinson, behind Rachaad White, behind David Montgomery in rush yards over expected. I don't know. Yeah, I think he might be washed.
He still had I think 4 plays last year of over 50 yards. So I don't know. I guess just at a certain price, we talk about it with Swift, right? We don't project Swift to have this massive role or even be that great at football, but he can break huge plays, and at a certain point, I think that's still attractive if Cook still has his long speed. Now, I think it takes the right set of conditions, right? Like if he's on the Dolphins, I think I would take him at pick 80. If he's on the Bucks, I'm not taking him at pick 80, right? So
I think that is the other thing, in that like the team that he could ultimately land with could absolutely crush his value. Like,
yeah.
The fact that there's no market for him, it's like, what if he lands with like the Texans or like one of these like really split backfield with like.
He wants to get paid, which is another major concern for us, right? Like he's not a Leonard Fournette situation where if a Bengals job opens up, like I feel like Fournette's gonna like fly to Cincinnati and just be like, sign me, dudes. But Cook isn't gonna do that. Cook wants to get paid, so he, I think, has higher odds of landing somewhere gross, higher odds of landing somewhere with an established starter, you know, that he thinks he can compete with or something, you know. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like he's going to end up in like a clean situation, given the Dolphins didn't pay him right away, right?
The thing that seems not great about signing with the Dolphins is it feels like a chain would be a better version, and a version they paid for, the third round pick of what theoretically Cook can still do, which is like go in a straight line really quickly.
I think one of those guys has to get hurt for Miami for the Dolphins to sign Dalvin. Like, I think they need one or two of their running backs get injured for that to happen. And I think what he's playing for, what it seems like he's playing for, is one of these more old school minded teams that like wants to pay running backs, has one go down, and oh shit, we need our star running back. Let's pay Dalvin $8 million or something. Like, I don't even know what the good outcomes from that are.
Yeah. And the Dolphins, I think the Dolphins' interest, and maybe I'm wrong about this, someone can send me a link, but I think this is like Dalvin generated hype of him going to the Dolphins, of him posting photos. There's no like reports that's showing, the Dolphins are interested in Dalvin Cook. I haven't seen that, at least. So that's why these like Wilson and Mostert prices, and even a Shane's falling. Like, I know I get why people are scared to draft them, but like, I don't think the Dolphin stuff is as likely as the market thinks for Dalvin. And B, I don't know. Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert just strike me as, guys that it might not be on the Dolphins this year, but they're going to find a way to a backfield once injuries happen and like get you some points. Like, Jeff Wilson is just like the new Tevin Coleman, where he's just going to show up on like the 49ers this year in week 8 and have 3 touchdowns, right? Like, he's a capable like NFL running back. He isn't that different to me than the Fournette bet, honestly, at pick 190, where like, I don't know if he's on the Dolphins, but I don't think he's getting paid $2 million guaranteed this year to be the Dolphins' 4th string running back if they sign Dalvin Cook. Like, he'll find a way to be relevant. So I still like those guys.
My issue with those guys is that if Cook signs there, they're going to be completely free. So it's been tough for me to draft them. But they are getting to the point where they're close to completely free.
Yeah, now, I guess I'm not really taking Mostert, but Wilson is getting to the point where it's now I'm getting in the 18th round now. I'm like, seems.
I think that's totally
better than Chase Brown or someone who could just be a complete zero. All right, any other fallers here? I guess the Barkley one, like, I don't see any serious holdout risk with Barkley, so I'm kind of hand waving that situation. Not? Because I don't think he has any leverage. I think that it would be great for him if they can negotiate like a 2 or 3 year deal where he gets some guaranteed money, and like maybe they have some kind of situation there. But I don't know. Like we've seen with the Le'Veon Bell situation that this holding out for running backs really doesn't work. And I'd be shocked if Barkley thought that was his best route.
The only thing about Bell did get offers from the Steelers that were better than what's probably on the table for Barkley now. So like the only thing, like I think the big thing for him is that like he could just wait until the deadline to sign. And if he still hasn't signed by that point, then maybe he's cheaper then.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
I just think in these holdout situations, and maybe it's a bad take because like maybe his price will continue to fall, so I should wait. But like, what are the times, the amount of times that the guy who's threatening to hold out actually holds out is like 1%, and we remember those. But like this year, you got crazy discounts in Lamar Jackson this year, when the whole time it's just like, what's the precedent of a elite quarterback just sitting out for a season? It just doesn't. It feels like it could happen in the moment, but like it's basically Le'Veon Bell.
Not Ryan Matthews. The Chargers guy,
Melvin Gordon.
Didn't he hold out until like the fourth game or something like that?
Yeah.
But
Vincent Jackson once held out 10 games. That was the last one I can remember of a guy holding out for a long time and coming back.
Yeah.
You guys have any concern about him, like Barkley not being as kind of like explosive last year?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just not very good anymore.
Yeah.
Like, given the 2-3 turn price or mid second there, like that's my big issue.
That's been why for me. I'm like, why wouldn't I kind of take this discount and try to push this discount? And I believe my start was I went Cup. Barkley was sitting there, correlation, right? I took JT instead, and then Barkley came back around in the third. And like once that happens, I'm like, I kind of want to see if this happens every time.
Yeah.
Why? I think I'm done taking second round Barkley with Cup now, and maybe I bank a couple more of these third round Barkleys. That feels way more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This Devontae Adams fall, dude. I don't care if Brian Hoyer's playing quarterback with him.
I'm completely in.
I take Adams like every time he's at the top of the queue.
I like Adams a lot. I want to mention with Barkley that I was looking into some of his advanced stats last week, and it is interesting how he does kind of profile as volume dependent now. And on the Giants, like who's going to challenge him for that volume? Probably no one. But his success rate has been pretty poor, which has been something to look out for in terms of goal line opportunities. Again, no one's really there to steal that from him, so he's probably got that locked down. But his yards per route run last year was a career low, 0.94. That was worse than Najee Harris as a rookie. He had 1.02 the year before, which was, again, not good. So early in his career, he was like a pretty impressive receiver. 1.53 as a rookie, pretty impressive. But he has not really been an impressive receiver over the last two seasons. I just like he's starting to make me a little nervous. Like I don't think he's washed the way Dalvin Cook is, but he makes me nervous.
Saquon Stan in the background there.
I think there's just an upside case. Or go ahead, Connor.
One thing, this is like more like human side me tilting. I had Saquon Barkley going into week 17 in the finals last year, and the Giants scored. I think like they scored like 5 goal line touchdowns, and he didn't get any of them. I was so mad.
Who did? Do you remember?
Daniel Bellinger and random.
Daniel Bellinger, Matt Breida,
right.
Lawrence Cager probably snuck in there.
Sam, I guess do you want to bag defend Juju here?
I actually do have some Juju stats related, but let me bag defend Barkley first. I think with Barkley, the case, and I get that his efficiency metrics were down last year. Looking at PFF rushing grade, he was still top 15 in that, and I think there is this element with the Giants where when their best, pass hitting weapons are Richie James and Darius Slayton, that the offense can pretty much just zone in on Saquon Barkley as like really the only offensive threat in that entire offense. So the Giants offense wasn't terrible last year, but there's certainly a lot of room for improvement. So I could see Barkley's efficiency just being a lot better next year if the offense is more capable. And again, like I'm more open to these like this guy is washed or falling off arguments if there's a legitimate threat in the backfield, and they've done absolutely nothing to address that. So I don't know. Matt Breida's not walking into 10 touches a game or whoever.
Is top
Wayne
15
Gallman
rushing grade, is that all that good?
I mean, it's out of 100 backs, he's top 15. So I don't know.
And
it's hard to
say 2-3 turn. Like it's
I
still
do,
like.
I do want to defend Barkley a little bit as well, just in terms of his rushing ability. Like he's not a very consistent rusher, but he is still a breakaway threat. Like unlike Dalvin Cook, who was negative in rush yards over expected last year, which is pretty concerning if he's supposed to still be the
Yeah.
breakaway guy. Barkley was not. Barkley was 6th in the NFL in rush yards over expected, just behind Josh Jacobs. He was ahead of Derrick Henry. Like, I think that part of his game still appears to be there for him. Like, he's going to rip off some long runs, and yeah, who's gonna eat into his workload? Like, but I do think, if you're like, how much is this guy really contributing to our offense? Like, how dynamic is he really? That those questions are probably in the minds of Joe Shane right now. Like, it doesn't make me feel great. Like, I would love him to be in the absolute prime of his career if he's in a contract standoff with his team.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's
the quotes.
I mean,
if you listen to the Barkley quotes, it's like, it's not like I'm going to hold out, I'm demanding more money. He's like, please, it would be nice, sir, if like I maybe got paid a little bit. Like, it's not like, it doesn't sound contentious or confrontational.
Imagine how shitty it is for Barkley that Gettleman got fired before he was up for a contract extension. Gettleman would have given that dude the moon. Gettleman would have gave him 5 years, $18 million, per year, fully guaranteed, no team out. He would have gotten the biggest running back contract in the modern NFL.
You're completely right.
All right, should we
Sad
talk
for our
Juju?
boy. I mean, dude, it's like everything that could possibly be a disaster for him is a disaster. He's hurt. Kendrick Bourne is playing his position. They're trying to sign DeAndre Hopkins. They're eliminating his position from the offense with Gesicki anyways. It's just like every possible thing is being like, this guy should be drafted after Rondale Moore, and he's not.
Yeah, why isn't he? Why would you take him over Rondale Moore?
Because Clayton Tune's not a starting quarterback.
This is what I don't get was that last year I'm sitting here on Juju Island, right? Like, no, he's actually still like he was good in the playoff game. He was never as good as
it's Ben's fault.
He was. I just don't. It's like the thing that really got me to be like, I'm actually not reevaluating my stance. I'm not going to be Bayesian here. Is that this knee injury that he suffered in like week 10 last year is still bothering him. That guy, like slot wide receiver with a knee injury still bothering him 6 months later, strikes me as a and I think the only reason his ADP is even here is because he goes in a range where wide receiver is dead. I mean, it's just people who have 3 wide receivers in round 9 and round 10, and they're like, I gotta get another wide receiver.
I agree with like pretty much all you said, and I'll give my Juju take. I'm definitely not above market on Juju. I agree with you, Davis. It's a range where wide receivers are getting pushed up because teams are desperate for wide receiver. There's been a huge drop off before that point. I just think that like with Juju, we're punishing him for unrealistic high expectations last year when he's basically always been the same player of a wide receiver who is very good at beating zone defenses. He can't go out and beat man and win down the field like we thought he could early in his career. You look at his metrics from last year, and it's just like a fine, competent wide receiver, like yards per route run, 1.7. That's 36th of 100 qualifying receivers. 18% targets per route run. That's, similar range to someone like Ayuk and Pittman. PFF receiving grade, 39th out of 100 qualifying receivers. Then half PPR points, 9.1. Again, 38th out of 100 or so receivers. So he's just a guy, and he's being drafted as wide receiver 50 as being like below just a guy. And again, it's not a range where I want to target wide receivers. I think the biggest thing is the health. If we're concerned about his health, then I think he should fall and not be drafted. But I think like the Juju sucks thing is just a little overblown because we were so hyped on him last year and he was just fine. And like,
I didn't take really any of Juju last year. I was completely out. And
must be nice. Must be nice
to tell you,
win.
He does suck. He does.
Must be nice to win $2 million.
I didn't take
and not
him
be
either.
all in on Dudu shit poopser and Sky Moore.
Hey, I wasn't on Sky Moore. I wasn't on.
20% target per route run does sound like there's something there.
Didn't you say 18 though? 18's not good.
18's
like
so
a. 18's like a.
It probably depends on the society. Rotoviz have 20.
No, 18% from PFF, including the playoff games. But yeah, again,
target per route run is a stat where you want to factor in ADOT to some degree. because, what is a target worth, right? Like a Juju target with an 8 out of 7.1, which was his highest since 2019, is not worth a ton in terms of yards after catch. He hasn't been explosive since like his second year in the league. So if you're not earning targets at a high rate, like with an 8 out of 7.1, I want a targets per route run of like 24%. Like I don't want to be dealing with anybody under 20% there. It's just, you're 7 yards downfield and you can't earn targets at any kind of a high rate. You're earning targets like a tight end. Like to me, I think he does suck. I think he can do a certain thing for your offense, sometimes get open in the short area of the field, but as soon as someone else either emerges or signs with Hopkins there, like he has no real chance of dictating volume. It's all just dependent on, is there literally no one else? Is he just kind of the one guy they can feed targets to underneath and in an inefficient offense?
And one of his things was before, when he was like a couple of years ago, was that he did score touchdowns. Like, that's true. Definitely small sample size, but 3 touchdowns for the Kansas City Chiefs last year is really bad.
Well, look, they got to run their merry-go-round play and like hand it off to Michael Burton. Like the
Chiefs do score touchdowns.
Yes, but
believe it or not, they do score touchdowns, and the fact that he only got 3 of them isn't great.
I mean, even Sky Moore scored one by accident in the Super Bowl. So I do think, like, I mean, could Juju have switched spots with Tony like twice and just been like, hey, Kadarius, you actually go stand over there? Like in the huddle, Juju is submarining Kadarius Toney because he doesn't know where he's supposed to be, and Juju wants the touchdown. So he goes and tells him to line up in the wrong spot. Juju, what we learned is Juju has no dog. He has no willingness to steal stats from his teammates. Sad.
Yeah. He's not a great pick. This injury thing is probably the most concerning part, but we'll see. We'll see with the Hopkins stuff. I do agree, if Hopkins signs there, he's dropping to probably like 130, 140. So
that's where I would,
you might as well at least wait that out with him.
Have you guys psyoped yourself into taking Devontae Parker yet? Just with the logic of like, he's a starting wide receiver in the NFL and he's there in the 18th round.
I was literally about to psyop myself until the Hopkins stuff came along.
Yeah. Oh, that actually made me psyop myself even.
He
more
won't. Yeah.
He's gonna get.
He won't be affected.
Chiefs.
I don't think he would be affected. I think
Why?
He'd still be the boundary guy.
I think they might
Wouldn't
cut it.
Thornton be the boundary guy?
I think either Parker or Bourne. Either Parker or Bourne is probably going to get.
If they sign DeAndre Hopkins, like Tyquan Thornton is not happening.
You don't think Thornton would play over Parker?
I think Bill loves his vets. And I think we've also psyoped ourselves with Thornton. Honest to God, I think the fantasy community has psyoped themselves into Thornton for 3 reasons. First reason, he was never expensive on DraftKings, so he was always easy to get in there. Second reason, he scored 2 touchdowns in his second game, and people remember that, and he was on your team, and his points counted. And I think if you remove any of those 3 factors, he's cheaper, and people care less about him.
Yeah.
The other thing about Parker is that he's somebody who literally, like, I hate playing the injury game, but like he is somebody who is literally always injured.
Literally always. Yeah.
So that could be the out for what's his name, type 1.
You've already forgot his name.
Already forgot.
I'm very bad with names, so that's maybe not a.
Yeah. The thing with Tyquan is he's now going in the Jaden Reed, Marvin Mims range. And why would I take a guy who was a second-round pick in the NFL who I know was bad as a rookie versus a guy who was a second-round pick in the NFL who might be good with Reed and Mims? So,
he was pretty bad as a rookie.
He was really bad.
Fair to say, yeah.
So I think I don't know. At this point, I think Thornton's fine. When he was 18th round free, I liked it, but now, I don't know. I'm not really taking him. Let's talk some stacks. Connor, curious how you've been approaching your best ball drafts this offseason. We're looking here at week 17 game stacks with the most expensive teams on the left, Kansas City, Cincinnati, all the way to Tennessee to Houston. Is there a particular Week 17 game stack that you're targeting, or are you even thinking about Week 17 as much as everyone else? Curious how you're approaching that.
I mean, I never go into drafts with like, oh hey, these are the stocks that I want. I try to like let it fall into place a little bit. But I do find that the one that I'm stacking up the most is the Washington San Francisco game. Just because I think there is actually quite a lot of good players in that game.
Well, it's so easy at ADP to get that game. They all just fall together. You know, you take McLaurin, then you take Ayuk. You know, you take Dotson, then 2 picks later you take Eli Mitchell. It just falls.
And I am a Harold Truder, so like I do think he was really good in college. Definitely encouraged by his start last year. So that's the one where I'm like, oh, that one feels like two teams where if you get them right, it really elevates your team in the regular season through to the playoffs, and then could be a barn burner. And then the rest of them, I kind of what I do is just some kind of combination of like ADP value and like where I think guys are good, like early rounds, and then I just try to fill out the blanks, mid late rounds after that. Like
on the Washington,
I know that's not.
Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
On the Washington 49ers game, I love that one too. I've said my piece on Howell, so I won't dive into him, but I would encourage people to play that through Purdy right now, because I don't think that his price is going to last. You know, you can get him still in the 14th round pretty much every time, and that's a reach. But it's like kind of one of those ranges where you're like, I'll lock this up, secure it. 14th, 15th round Purdy feels like we're going to trend away from that, right?
I think so. Like once there's more confidence he's the starter. I mean, I think people are already assuming Howell's a starter, and he's been hovering around pick 200 for a while. Whereas I think there's still people who believe Lance is going to come in and win that job.
Lance still gets drafted. So
Lance gets drafted ahead.
I think it's flipped recently. It's flipped recently, but that was the case
definitely
for long.
some drafts.
There was people drafting Trey Lance at like pick 90 in February and March.
I'm aware. Yeah, I remember that.
We tried to warn them against that, Pat.
No, I didn't. I didn't. I told them draft Lance while you can, and I was wrong.
Yeah,
you never know. You could search
in the famous words of David Kitchen, you know, you just never know. You just never know.
Yeah. Anything else? So the one thing that jumps out to me here is the Chargers Denver game getting more expensive, and now is the second most expensive game after KC Cincinnati. It's not like a huge difference, right? Basically every game from Chargers to Denver all the way through, I don't know, Washington, San Francisco is like similarly priced, but it does strike me. I don't know. I think I get flashbacks to KC Denver last year and all the Denver stacks I was building that we're starting to believe in Denver again is maybe a little bit scary. That said, I think Denver players are still fairly priced and I'm drafting them, but that one did stand out to me.
Do you guys ever take Tim Patrick?
Yeah, when I take Russ.
Yeah.
Because you can take Eckler in the first round, or you can take Keenan, and if you miss out on Herbert, you don't have to take Judy, you don't have to take Sutton, you can take Russ, then you can take Dulcich, and then you can take Mims or Patrick.
Yep.
Didn't Patrick have that ACL tear?
Yes.
I mean, apparently the market is completely disregarding. The market is completely disregarding ACL tears because Breece Hall is running back 11, so it just doesn't matter.
But I thought there was a thing where like the quality of how athletic they are is really important for the
age
recovery.
matters.
Yeah.
And like maybe I'm like discounting him too much as an athlete, but like somebody who's like kind of like not the elite NFL athlete. Sounds like should have a much harder time recovering from a tear than.
Michael Gallup. Like Breece. Michael Gallup said 8 months into his ACL recovery, he couldn't walk. So, it feels like we've maybe gone too all in on the modern medicine, bro. These guys, they're back better than ever. Like I get it. Like Tim Patrick could very easily be KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler talking about Denver wide receivers coming back from an ACL tear. Did he even play? I don't even remember KJ Hamler accruing any statistics for all my dead KJ Hamler teams.
It is helpful that Patrick tore it in the preseason, though.
Yeah, sure.
He'll be over a year removed from the ACL.
When did KJ Hamler tear his ACL?
In season, right?
2021.
God damn, dude. I drafted so much KJ Hamler, and he had 7 fucking catches last year. That is so.
Hey, that's 6 more than Jameson Williams.
How many did Albert O have?
The reason I'm semi in on Patrick, and then I'll mix him in on correlated stuff and just my 18th round pick, is that he has a dead cap hit of over $10 million this year.
They signed him to a huge contract extension, then he tore his knee.
Yeah, so you really can't cut him. I think they can cut him technically, and they'll eat like $10 million in dead cap and save like less than $1 million. So if he's like atrocious, maybe they would cut him, but I think he's going to be on the roster. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you have like Cortland Sutton has really been, speaking of ACL tears, another guy who tore his ACL and seemingly never recovered. Maybe that's an argument for Patrick or against it, but man, Sutton has not looked great the past couple of years. I think the athleticism he had early in his career is maybe sort of passed him by, where I could see Patrick just forcing his way onto the field at the expense of Sutton if Sutton just doesn't have anything left. So I think it's a fine.
He could be a round 18 guy that catches 2 touchdowns in week 17. Like that.
Yeah, he's a big dude. That feels
very possible.
Yeah.
When he's been healthy, they have always liked to play him and get him on the field. So, we'll see.
I just know this ends with Jared Stidham throwing 3 touchdowns to Adam Troutman in week 17. Like there's no other way it can go. And I hate that.
Troutman's on the Broncos.
Yeah,
he came over with his guy, Sean Payton.
Sean Payton also brought over Tony Jones. It's like he's bringing over really the worst of the worst from New Orleans.
He's just whipping off the cream of the crop from that roster.
I mean, just wait for them to cut Russ and for him to trade a 2nd-round pick for Taysom Hill. Like, Russ
for Taysom straight up. Who says no?
The Saints say no so fast.
Say no real hard.
So moving on to
I wanted to make a point. I wanted to make a point on the Eagles, which is that we all sort of week 17 stuff is clearly baked into ADP. All of that is true. People clearly are factoring that in. I mean, what is the spread and the total of that game going to be if Kyler Murray does not come back at any point? If Clayton Tune or Colt McCoy is quarterbacking that game, I mean, it could be a spot where the Eagles are up 21-0 at half, and like you could see a story where like Jalen Hurts posts this monster season. All the things we say are coming true. The Eagles defense is a little bit worse. The Eagles pass catchers are get more volume and retain their efficiency. AJ Brown has like a 30% advance rate as a 1st-round pick. It's like something we've never seen before. And Eagles stacks are so common in the final. And Jalen Hurts scores 18. AJ Brown scores 15. Dallas Goedert gets 11. And Boston Scott scores 2 one-yard touchdowns. And all these teams are dead as shit in the final.
All right, Davis, I need you to open your third eye here because one thing.
All right.
Okay.
Opening it. It's zipped.
The Giants play the Eagles play the Giants in week 18. Okay. So heading into the Cardinals game against Clayton Tune.
Oh my God. I love the way this is going.
Boston Scott's on ice, so they can't use him. They need their giant killer fresh.
Okay.
So
okay.
You get the Eagles just roll the, Devonta Smith catches a touchdown. Jalen Hurts rushes in 1. Rashad Penny scores a touchdown. But then second half, DeAndre Swift, averaging a 15% snap share, just gets thrown out there, scores 3 touchdowns to salt away the game. Week 17, so that you needed.
That wasn't exactly the way I thought you were going to go. I thought you were going to go with basically the Eagles effectively rest their starters as 15.5-point favorites against the Cardinals, but that would mean DeAndre Swift going nuts if the starters are rested. Yeah. So we got to the same place eventually. Yeah, I think I just opened my third and fourth eyes to DeAndre Swift. Is who you need in Week 17.
The other thing, Davis, with your story is that that general narrative of the Eagles is absolutely destroying a team in the first half and playing their backups in the second half. They basically did that all of last year, and the Eagles players still got there. So that's almost like the baseline.
But they weren't on the teams they were not the guys you needed in Week 17 last year. The Eagles.
Well, that was probably Hurts getting injured, but I see what you're saying.
I think they just played bad in Week 17 last year.
They did.
Did Hurts even play?
I had a lot of Eagles receivers, and they just the offense was just bad.
Oh no, that was the game against the Saints where they sucked. They were awful. The whole team played shit. Okay, all right. I gotta go look this up.
All the tweets where people said that like Minshew and Jalen, there's zero difference between Minshew and Jalen Hurts. People deleted all those after that game.
Okay. No, they were the New Orleans Saints. They scored 10 points. It was horrendous. They did nothing. Gardner Minshew was 18 to 32. There was one passing touchdown, and it was to AJ Brown had 4 for 97 on a touchdown. Devonta had 9 for 115. Miles Sanders, who was a huge win if you took him last year, pretty high advance rate player, 12 for 61, no targets, so 6 points from Miles Sanders in the final.
I do think that these kind of things can be useful in that, like, when you look at actual games, like, because things are decided by one game, by singular games in Week 17, like how wild and like weird they can be.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like, not to, like, who knows what could happen? Like, could be anything.
We just don't know. We just don't
know.
But
that
is worth remembering.
Yeah, man. I mean, speaking of people resting their starters in Week 17, Week 17 was so fucked last year. Derrick Henry and the entire Titans starting offense.
We can't even talk about Derrick Henry resting in Week 17.
I had him on one of my BBM finals bullets, and
I had him on my final team as well.
Absolutely brutal. So yeah, we just don't know. That's why you take Malik Willis. He's going to be starting Week 17 this year.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if Malik Willis, like a phoenix, rises from the ashes to be relevant in fantasy football?
But I think that does raise the question of, like, who are the teams where, like, you get this super cheap stack late and it doesn't matter all year, and then Week 17 there's just this freak game where
the Patriots are the team, right? Where
is a really good one, yeah. Panthers would be one I'd nominate as well.
Oh my God, yeah. Texans, Titans. It's one of the four. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really getting into nerddom here, but 2023 is an El Nino year. So the weather is going to be nuts anywhere coastal. It's going to be insane. So a lot of these outdoor games, I mean, people also have memory wiped this, but Week 16 last year, not Week 17, but Week 16, there was a polar vortex across the United States. There were multiple games with totals at like 32. All these outdoor games were like ruined. They were like no one scored any points. There was no forward passes. Imagine if that happened in Week 17, how different the context would have been, and that Texans Titans game is indoors. I don't know. It's you just never know, but it's something I do think about a lot.
Right.
I think about it a lot. Yeah.
Like maybe the fact that it's indoor, outdoor just won't matter this year.
Now, how does the El Nino thing factor in? Is that
because it means the weather will be mild. It'll be
no. The opposite. It means precipitation is nuts. It means it causes
across the U.S.
Okay. I thought it was like a milder winter.
No, well, so the temperatures will be higher. The temperatures have the possibility to be higher, but it causes crazy precipitation. So we could have extra snow, extra hail, extra rain in a lot of these especially the coastal games. There could be
precipitation for us.
Well, so do you remember that crazy Bears?
A lot of our listeners have never been outside, Pat. So it's actually
Well, do you remember the Bears 49ers game in Week 1 last year, Lance versus Fields,
dude.
and there's
I
mean, imagine if you draft a stack and you're like, these dudes can't even see. We got Justin Fields slipping. It's like, gonna weather has the possibility to ruin Best Ball Mania 4, or just completely skew the results. Like some super high advance rate stack, passing stack, Chiefs Bengals gets played and it's 47 degrees and there's driving rain. Like that game sucks for fantasy.
Yeah. So what do we do? Just take only dome games?
I target a lot of dome games. I take like CJ Stroud, John Mechie, Nico Collins at the end a lot. I unironically take a lot of guys playing in domes or retractable roof spots.
Or the South.
Smart.
Would that work too? Like Southern games?
It works for it won't be cold, obviously, but it could be really rainy.
Which is a
I mean, this is like the 900th level of things to think about in terms of like winning fantasy football, but it is something I've been in the back of my mind.
Hayden's here to back us up on this one. So
Hayden was the originator of this last offseason. He was the first guy to do the close your eyes. Imagine it's 17 degrees across the United States of America, and all the outdoor games have.
Yeah, and it was the week before. He totally blew it.
He totally went, dude. Hayden, dude, he doesn't get it, bro.
I mean, it's tough to like.
Which are the dome games?
The
I don't
week
know.
17 that I know. I got it pulled up. These are I typed up a Twitter thread on this the other day, and I was like, you know what? This is actually too virgin for Twitter. Like this is better for ADP chasing. This isn't a good thread. 1 second. I gotta go find it. Okay, so
I think
the indoor
Las Vegas, Indianapolis, right?
It's Lions, Cowboys, Titans, Texans. It is Raiders, Colts, and Packers, Vikings are the indoor games. There's only 4.
Those are all really affordable games.
Yes. If you really want to get into the weeds, technically the Seahawks game is kind of domed. It is half domed. It prevents about 70% of the precipitation from getting into the field because it's in Seattle. And so if it was all the way open, the seats would basically rust every single year and they'd have to replace them. So maybe that helps a little bit, but that's what my research turned up.
Okay. I mean, Titans. So on this chart again, Titans, Houston stands out as like by far. Like you could take, well, Derrick Henry obviously is expensive and Dameon Pierce is somewhat, but you could take like 6 Tennessee, Houston pass catchers. I don't even know who you take on Tennessee, to be honest. That's probably a bad strategy, but like
Okonkwo,
you could stack.
I mean, you could take
Okonkwo. Yeah, Burks, Okonkwo, and then grab 2 or 3 Houston pass catchers. It's not. You could do it like very easily.
The thing is like those could be good picks anyways. Like the Houston picks specifically. Like if Stroud is like a C+, B- quarterback anyway, those could like you could have a huge win anyway with this week 17 spot of like this awful, like 2 bad defenses playing against each other. Now, obviously the head coaches of these teams are like very much like, Dameon Pierce and Derrick Henry are combining for 47 touches in that game, regardless of whatever happens, but they could be good picks anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I like those cheap offenses you can stack up for nothing with your last couple picks.
What were the other dome games again?
Dallas, Detroit.
Dallas, Detroit is the one that I'm like, when I get that, when I start, like, sometimes I'll start St. Brown Pollard just for the vibes or something that. But just like, you get CeeDee, you get whoever, you take Dak, you take Laporta, you take Montgomery. You're just like, ooh.
You can get Gibbs in there too.
You can get, it feels so good, man. You're like, it's just like, I got the winning ticket right here.
Jameson Williams maybe catching like his 6th and 7th passes of the year in week 17.
Damn, you're a bull, huh?
He takes him to the head.
Yeah, if you project his stats from last year, it's really hard to get to 6 or 7, but there's a lot
you can get him
in fantasy, Pat.
Yeah, you can get him to 16 targets with like 8 touchdowns. So, all right, Sam, you have to go. Do we want to keep vibing or do we want to get out of here?
I think we should let's give our best value takes. Unless any other, I'll open it up. Any last comments on stacks, Connor? I'll give you the floor here. You haven't been talking about as much as we have. So any other stacks that you want to give the people?
Let me see. So talk about Washington.
I wish that one was inside.
Yeah.
Undraftable now that it's outside. Now that I found out it's outside.
Seattle, that one looks fun as well. Where like they're one of those teams where they actually have a few good players, and people say, "Oh no, you can't take them. They have too many good players."
Oh,
and like, okay, well, what if the offense is just good then?
Yeah.
Gino.
Yeah. What if the offense is just good, Sam? Does that make you nervous at all?
Yeah, betting on Geno Smith having 2 years in a row, as always.
Okay, I got some breaking news. Alex Spielman on Twitter, reports I've seen mentioned that this should be a super El Nino year.
I thought you were going to break that like DeAndre Hopkins signing.
Super El Nino.
Super El Nino. That means every Week 17 game turns into Justin Fields sliding down the field like an airplane.
All right, I guess I'm drafting more Lions.
Mm-hmm. All right,
Colts. I draft a lot of Anthony Richardson. That's in a dome, right?
Yep,
that's in a dome.
Okay.
All right, Connor. We do this every week. Give our best closing line values by August. Which player is going to have the biggest gain in closing line value? Who is your pick?
I'm not prepared. So can somebody?
Okay,
else
someone else.
I'll go first.
Someone save him.
I got one. I haven't used this one yet. Kenneth Gainwell. When it becomes clear, when everyone's third eye opens.
I think I used that one last week.
Use that one. Okay, I will use. I cheated. I will use Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice will get to training camp. And people will be like, "Oh yeah, he's better than Sky Moore." So let's do Rashee Rice.
Can I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Because mine's Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore.
Hey, one of us is going to be right.
Oh man. Well, you can have a direct influence on this by how much you hype him up throughout the offseason too. So this might be like insider trading.
So listen. That's partly true, but I don't think people are going to listen to me again on Sky Moore. So we're going to need to find someone who didn't tout Sky Moore last year, which is going to be hard to find because the whole industry was basically in on him, and then he completely busted. The front page of the Kansas City Chiefs team page on The Athletic right now is a picture of Sky Moore wearing number 24, which is still terrible. Please change your number. And the title is "The Young Chiefs Player Who is Impressing Patrick Mahomes." You click into the article. There's a section.
It's about Justin Ross.
No. The first mini section is called "Moore Appears to Be Ascending." It's talking about how he basically is the favorite for the Juju Smith-Schuster role. I think the fact that we are still drafting Juju Smith-Schuster.
Wow, the favorite for the Juju Smith-Schuster role, blowing me away.
I know, but look.
Wow, I really like the sound of that.
We know how gross this range is at wide receiver. There's like usually a couple teams in the draft that are sort of desperate for a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. If they have a gross wide receiver 4, it's just a natural part of the board for a wide receiver with buzz to be able to jump up a couple rounds. So I'm taking him right now in the 10th round, but I could see him rising to that 8th round range pretty easily.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I don't like it, but I do take him.
Yeah, I'll take him stacked. I don't know. I still like, maybe I'm wrong about this. I still like Rashee Rice better just because of what happened last year with Sky. But that gap is getting bigger. I guess it's just because of off-season kind of hype stuff around Sky versus Rashee. But I don't hate it. I mean, one of these Kansas City receivers is way too cheap, right?
Right.
They have to be.
Well, that was sort of the thesis last year, and none of them were.
Yeah, that's true. Fuck. I thought I learned that lesson. Okay, I'll give mine. I'm going to go with deciding between two Green Bay pass catchers. I'm going to go with Jaden Reed. I almost chose Luke Musgrave, but I don't think people are really ever going to buy into rookie tight end. So I'll go with Jaden Reed. I just think that, the Romeo Doubs stuff, I guess it depends, it's a glass half full situation. You can look at his rookie year and say he got on the field.
I almost chose Romeo Doubs.
Yeah. And I know that there's, smart people that are into him. And, I listen
there's good people on both sides.
There's good people on both sides of the Romeo Doubs debate. But Man, I don't know. I think just the signal of them taking Jaden Reed in the second round kind of shows to me they weren't that happy with what Dubs did last year. And I don't think it's a signal about Watson, given how well he played down the stretch. Dubs, like rookie year stats they're totally
Who would
fine.
their third wide receiver have been if they I'm gonna be a pedant here, because who would their third wide receiver have been if they didn't take Jaden Reed?
Yeah, I don't know. Samori Torre or something like
it
that.
would have been
Right,
it would have
that's
been
right.
it would have
That's
been a
what
no
it is.
one.
It would have been a nobody, which is fair, but it's still second round draft capital for Jaden Reed versus fourth round draft capital for Romeo Dubs. And I'm gonna break the tie in favor of the draft capital. And Dubs' rookie year was like just on the margin of like you could squint at it and be like that was pretty good, but for a guy who was day 3 draft capital, I'm kind of just believing that they don't really think they found something in Dubs besides just a fine third wide receiver to have on the roster. I don't think he's anything special. So I'm team Jaden Reed over Romeo Dubs, especially when there's a 3-round gap in their ADPs. Like I just don't get that with the draft capital that went for those guys.
A lot of the closing line value, it can often be like some rookie who is going late, and like you go to training camp and they just have this constant buzz of this guy looks great, this guy looks amazing, and you probably have more likelihood of that happening for Reed than Dubs. So I did thank you for taking up the airtime. I did find my pick. So I'm going for Rashid Shaheed.
That is a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Because like I guess the argument in favor of him. So he was the NFL equivalent of a walk-on last year, of like completely undrafted. I can't even remember the name of where he went to college. And then for weeks 14 through 18, he actually according to Rotoviz had like an 88% route share. Like, so the highest on the team, and then like somewhat low sample size, only 82 routes, but 3 yards per route run, and like he's going at pick 160, and like that's kind of the range where like you're not really talking as much about starting wide receivers. And
the other out you have there is it's August 3rd. And it's Michael Thomas is almost ready to practice. He's almost ready.
Wow.
It's coming. Like we're gonna get
he'll practice any day now.
Out.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Awesome stuff, guys. What do we have going on this week at Legendary Upside, Pat?
I'm working on an article that I'm hoping to get out midweek this week on success rate. I've mentioned it a million times. I'm going to actually publish the article on it now. Got underdog rankings, got DraftKings rankings, got dynasty rankings that collaborate with Davis and Jacob Sanderson on. So yeah, check out Legendary Upside. You can still get $30 off your first year at legendaryupside.com/early.
Those 2-hour podcasts were really great. Listen to those over the weekend with
we got a couple
Davis
more.
and Jacob.
Yeah,
couple more.
We might even knock 2 out this week. We'll see. Got that coming. Yeah, I need to tweak a couple things in mine. Got to move Kyle Pitts up and Mark Andrews up. Both them were too low in my initial one. So I'll get updated. And I've been working on underdog rankings this week as well. So I need to get those finalized.
Awesome. Connor, what about you? Anything? I know you're busy with other stuff these days, but any Rotoviz articles or research you're working on these days? Or
I'm not sure when it's going to come out. But we'll start to work on FFPC stuff.
Nice.
Had a lot of FFPC stuff, like where are the main advantages on FFPC. Last year, one of the big things, and no shock to anyone, you do really have to prioritize the tight ends. We'll probably update that with the new lower prices. Same thing with quarterbacks. I guess just most of the content is about underdog, so trying to fit a FFPC niche, best ball, but yeah, we'll have to get through some stuff in work before I get that out.
Yep. Awesome stuff. Well, thanks for joining us again. Connor, that was a ton of fun. We will be back next Monday. For Connor, for Davis, for Pat, this is Sam. We'll be back next week. See you guys.